Hello and welcome to another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show. This is episode number 38 and today is Friday, September 30th. This is the last day of the month. It has been an interesting week. We've had some release dates announced, some delays announced, a fair bit of tech has been announced as well. So it's sort of a mix of things here and there across the spectrum of the gaming world. In addition, like PAX Australia is next week. So next week is also the Melbourne International Games Week. So there's a bunch of stuff happening across, the 5 business days, and obviously PAX is Friday, Saturday, Sunday next weekend. So yeah, there's a lot happening now. There's a lot coming up, and we're going to get into it. Just as a preference too, we'll be doing the games of platforms at the end of the episode as always. So if you want to know about that stuff, be sure to stick around. But now we're going to get stuck into the news, and the first thing I'm going to talk about is that Dragonflight, the World of Warcraft expansion, has been dated and it is actually coming out this year. So Blizzard announced Dragonflight back in April, and then they were pretty quiet on it for about 3 months until July, when they sort of detailed the various editions that could be ordered. And then since then, they've been, again, pretty quiet on it. There hasn't really been any, public testing, the public test servers stuff going on for it, like they do with pretty much everything else. So it's been fairly, a lot of people were expecting that it was maybe not going to release this year, it was going to release in the new year. But they turned around this morning and said, no, it's coming on November 28th. So Dragonflight is the new expansion. Let me just throw that on there. Having a moment. So it's the new expansion where this forgotten land that was sort of put to slumber thousands of years ago is being woken up. So there's new lands to explore. There's a new race to play as, where you're basically a dragon hybrid, and that's also a new class. So it's the first race and class combination. Previously you could be a race and then have a class that you wanted, whereas this is this is the first time where it's been like 1-to-1. So there's new regions: the Walking Shores, Onoran Plains, the Azure Span, and Thaldraszus. The talent tree is coming back to WoW. It's something that was in there many years ago. They've redone it and they're bringing it back into the game. There's new dungeons to raid. There's new professions, or updated professions, I should say. They're doing a lot for UI customization now, so without the need to install 900 mods. And yeah, there's various editions on the game itself. So specifically, there's let me just bring this up. There's 3 digital editions. So there's the base edition, which is just the expansion pack and the pet. The heroic edition, which is the base edition plus a level 60 character boost, a flying mount, and a different type of pet. And then the epic edition is everything previously, along with some extra stuff, including 30 days of game time. There is also a big retail release that comes in the big fancy box, like they do with their expansions, and it comes with a bunch of in-game items and some pins and the art book and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely a lot, a lot of options for players to get it for themselves. As I said though, it did sort of surprise everyone that it is coming out this year, because they've been really, really quiet on it. We've been hearing more about Diablo than we've been hearing about, Diablo and Overwatch than we've been hearing about World of Warcraft. So, that's a welcome surprise, because it was not something that we were expecting to see. Moving on from a welcome surprise to a sad surprise that honestly was something that many people would just have said it was going to happen just because of the history, but that is that Skull and Bones has been delayed again. So Ubisoft announced the other day that Skull and Bones, which was dated to release on November 8, is now setting sail on March 9th. So that is another 4 months of delay. for the game. This has been one of the worst, not developed, but the worst timeline-wise that we've seen in a number of years. So we had, Duke Nukem Forever. That took like 13 years to come out, but it basically vanished after like the first year after it was announced. Metroid Prime 4 from Nintendo. We got a logo saying it was in development. Then we got a video like 2 years later saying they'd restarted development. But since then, we've heard nothing on it. And even Bayonetta 3 from Platinum Games and Nintendo, they announced that back in 2017, and it wasn't until last year that we actually got, a new trailer for it. So it's been one of those, we've had games do this, but this is the first time where we've ever had a game that's constantly delayed. So the specific reason as to why it's delayed, so the development team released a statement and just says, today we'd like to give you an update regarding release dates. Although Skull and Bones development is finished at this stage, the invaluable feedback received during our various technical tests and insider program convinced us we could use a bit of extra time to polish and balance the experience even further and ensure you all get the best experience we can offer. We've therefore decided to push the launch date back to March 9. We'll be organising more insider program sessions to continue gathering feedback, and then blah, blah, blah. So I actually worked it out. So this game was revealed in 2017. And they said they were aiming for a late 2018 release. Now, this game came about because Ubisoft Singapore, who was leading the development of this, they were the ones that did the sailing portions for Assassin's Creed 3. And then they got to do Assassin's Creed Black Flag. So, they sort of mastered the sailing, which, has been sort of in most of them since. And then, so they got a chance to do their own game. So they announced it in 2017 for a late 2018 release. Back then it was PS3, PS4 and Xbox One. Then in 2018 it was delayed to 2019. Then sometime in 2019 it was delayed to 2020. But then in 2019 it was delayed again. So it was 2 delays in the 1 year. And the delay was it was not going to come out until at least April 2021. And then in May of 2021, they said, no, it's another 12-month delay. That meant, April 2022. Then we heard in April that it was not going to come out until later in the year. Then in July, we got the release date. And then, we've now been delayed again. And as I state here, those are the dates we only know publicly, right? Every time they've had to make a statement about it being delayed, it's because of, in an investor call. So they have to tell their shareholders, hey, this game that we think is going to make us money, then in terms of make you money, we've delayed it for reason X, right? So they've been making these statements to the investors. But yeah, so the game's had like 5 or 6 public delays before this one. And, I don't know. I can't understand how anyone at Ubisoft thought this was going to go over well. So, we Beyond Good and Evil 2, that was a game that was announced ages ago. We had a trailer and then it sort of vanished. And then when it was re-announced, it was completely different. Like the whole game was different. Characters weren't present that we were expecting. And then another trailer showed that they were back in the game and all sorts of stuff. That game has since gone radio silent again as well. So we keep seeing Ubisoft do this where they're announcing games either too early, and then they then realize, hey, this thing isn't polished, so we need to delay it. So Rainbow Six Siege launched too early, so they had to do a lot of work to fix that, and now it's a popular game for them. It's not a true Rainbow Six, but it's popular for Ubisoft, so they enjoy it. They launched Ghost Recon Wildlands. That didn't launch well, so they fixed it. They launched Ghost Recon Breakpoint. That launched even worse, and they couldn't fix that one. They were going to launch Watch Dogs Legion, but they realized they needed more time, so they delayed that one. They delayed Far Cry 6. They delayed Riders Republic. They delayed Rainbow Six Extraction. So they're constantly delaying their games because they keep dating them too far. They're committing to dates, and then they're not able to actually commit to the date. So when Ubisoft said, hey, this is coming out on, November 8th, everyone kind of was like, yeah, cool, we'll see, we'll wait and see. And I'm pretty sure in the story I put up when I said that the game had a date, I made a comment about, we'll actually wait and see if it does actually release, because this game had just been delayed. So the only game we know, outside of Just Dance, which is, Just Dancing, the only game we know that, they haven't had to delay anything on is Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which is out, next month. And that's more likely to do with the contract with Nintendo. They probably had a timeline they had to meet. So, it's fairly interesting that this is sort of this is what Ubisoft are up to at the moment with their releases. So, it being delayed isn't that surprising. It obviously does suck that it's been delayed. It's a horrible thing, and I do feel for the developers who have spent years working on this. And as Steve's put here in the chat, it's been delayed. It's on track to be delayed until 2099. That could be the case, Steve. But if I'm still talking about this game in another 70 years, somebody has to come and do something for me, because that's too much. But yeah, it's just one of those sad things that we're seeing more and more delays these days, because companies they're committing to dates to impress the shareholders over their actual staff. We saw it with Bethesda Game Studios. They announced Fallout 4 at E3 2018, I think it was 2017, 2018. And then that game released, November that year. Right? It was like a 5-month window between it being announced and it being out. They teased Starfall back then, or maybe it was the year after. And then we got Starfall last year, but it was dated for this year. And it's like, cool, that's an 18-month window between you announcing the date and the date itself, which is too big of a window, so it was never going to hit it, and it didn't. They delayed it. Arcane Austin, they announced Redfall last year, said it was coming out in summer of 2022 for North America. It got delayed. When was that? Was like May, I think it was. So just a few weeks shy of the American summer season kicking off, they delayed that game, another 6 to 8 months. So, yeah, and I get why they have to commit to dates. They have to say to the shareholders, to the people investing in their company, hey, if you give us your money now, on this date we're going to have this game release. It's going to make us a lot of money, which in turn makes you more money. I get that whole business side of things. But we're starting to see it now with companies where they're pushing dates out just to have a date. Xbox did it with Halo. It was supposed to launch alongside the Xbox Series X and S consoles. They delayed it just weeks before launch for another 12 months. And even now, the game's still not fine. It's still multiplayer's still broken. There's no online. There's no local co-op for it at all. So everything that that they did, they still didn't fix all the problems. Nintendo's not immune to it. As I said before, Bayonetta 3 is in that group. You could argue Advanced Wars is in there because that was dated. It's now been delayed to an unknown date. Correct, Hogwarts Legacy from WB Games and Avalanche, that was supposed to sort of be a launch window-ish title for PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. I mean, that game leaked like 5 years ago. Even PlayStation, they've had delays with some of their games as well. So game development is a massive undertaking. It is one of those things where it is just so monumental these days that the points of failure are far bigger than they were 10 years ago. But companies seem to be focusing on if we date it, we'll make that deadline, which is not the case. I mean, we saw the GTA 6 leak, over the past couple of days, or past weeks, I should say. People were going on and on about how, it doesn't look right and rah. That game was rumored initially to be releasing this year. But with how Rockstar themselves got, punished by the public for all the reports of crunch time, which is the last sort of 6 months of development where they have developers do 6 12-hour days a week, with all those reports of developers sleeping under desks and not having weekends and all that sort of stuff. They expanded their development timeline by a full 12 months just so the developers could work on the game at a good pace, keep, health and safety at the forefront of everything. So, obviously, Rockstar's owned by Take-Two, the owners of 2K. So it's not as if, they're a small indie studio that this is going to hurt their bottom line. But the same argument can be said for Ubisoft. Ubisoft makes, hundreds of millions of dollars every quarter. So delaying a game or not dating a game until it's actually ready to be dated, not a problem with that at all. Right, moving on from the world of delays, we actually have a release date for the new Deadpool movie. So during the week, out of nowhere, Ryan Reynolds dropped on Twitter that Deadpool 3 is coming, and it's coming in September of 2024. The North American date is September 6. Disney have not confirmed the date for Australia yet, but I highly suspect it'll be the day before, as it usually is. But the big news with this one is that Hugh Jackman is back as Wolverine. So, Hugh Jackman he played the character in the 3 original X-Men movies. He then played the character in the 3 spin-off solo movies, so X-Men Origins Wolverine, The Wolverine, and Logan. And then he played the character in X-Men Days of Future Past. So he's played the character. He did a cameo, in the first X-Men, the X-Men First Class, the reboot. So he's played the character, 8 times now, and then Logan was his swan song. Essentially, it was, his way of saying goodbye to the character. I'm going to spoil the movie. Wolverine, Logan dies. It's his time, sort of thing. But yeah, so when they said Deadpool 3 was in development, everyone just sort of expected it'll just be him coming into the MCU and messing things up. The inclusion of Hugh Jackman, as Wolverine, that's obviously a big thing. It is, of course, Deadpool 3 will be part of the MCU. It is not going to be connected to anything that we are aware of. It could be, in some way, shape, or form. They're just not telling us. We do know that Sean Levy is going to be the director of the movie. He recently, he did Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds, and also The Adam Project for Netflix that Ryan Reynolds also starred in. He's also the director that did the Night at the Museum trilogy. So he sort of got, a bit of a comedy background, some light action here and there. So we'll have to see, how that all goes. The same writers for the movie from the first 2 movies are back for this one as well. So it is sort of, a return of sort of all the key people for it. It's just the fact, it is going to be in the MCU. Now, Kevin Feige, has said or confirmed that it will be an R-rated movie. The writers have said it'll be an R-rated movie. So it'll be quite interesting to see how it all shapes out. This is not the first time these 2 actors have been on stage, together as these characters, with Ryan playing a version of Wade Wilson in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Obviously, the Deadpool character at the end of that movie is not the Deadpool that most people know now, but it's there. And then Hugh Jackman had a cameo role in Free Guy. So we've seen sort of them banter back and forth. They've had a lot of fun with it. There is also another video that was released by Ryan Reynolds the day after, and they have some fun with it. Explaining the story, explaining how Wolverine's in the movie and all that sort of stuff, and they just overlay when they start getting into it. They overlay with a big song. So it could be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Purely because how it connects to the MCU at large is the more interesting thing. Obviously, though, the MCU is now, the multiverse is a big thing, so they can be their own thing, and they could do what Venom, Let There Be Carnage did, and just have a tag at the end that, throws Logan into the main MCU rather than like a subset of the MCU. So, we'll see what happens there. Last week, a leaked trailer for Sackboy, saying it was getting a PC release, was put on the internet, and then it was removed pretty much straight away. But Sony confirmed overnight that Sackboy is indeed coming to PC. So Sackboy: A Big Adventure was a launch title for the PlayStation 5. There was also a PlayStation 4 release way back when, And yeah, they've also now confirmed that the game is coming to PC, and it's coming in a little under 4 weeks. So it'll be releasing on October 27. Much like all the PC releases from PlayStation, they're taking full advantage of it. The game will have ultra-wide monitor support, 4K resolution. This will support variable refresh rates, which is something that the PlayStation 5 just got in an update a couple of months back. It'll also support, 120 frames a second and all that sort of, all the bells and whistles. We do have the full specs here that if you do want to check them out. The thing that is a bit interesting about this is that the game is actually being ported over by Sumo Digital, who were the guys that created the game in the first place. Whereas in the God of War port from the start of the year, that was done by Nixes. And then for Spider-Man recently, that was done by Iron Galaxy. So, this is the first, PlayStation Studios game that's actually been done by the original developer. But as Sumo Digital have experience with multiple platforms, it doesn't surprise me that they're the ones doing it. It is going to support, it's essentially it's the exact same game. The only real thing that'll be different if you're playing this one is you can use your PlayStation 5 DualSense or a PlayStation 4 DualShock controller. If you do use the DualSense through a wired connection, it'll offer the same functionality as playing the game on a PS5, but it'll also support Xbox controllers and a few other controllers here and there. So if you're someone who doesn't like the layout of the PlayStation series of controllers, you'll be able to play these games with like an Xbox controller or the Xbox layout of controllers. But yeah, it is coming, as I said, October 27. It's just more Sackboy, which is perfectly fine. There's not a problem with that at all. Moving into the world of cute and adorable, there is a whole lineup of Animal Crossing themed goodies available from Nintendo of Tokyo. This is being reported out via Voox. So Nintendo opened up a retail store years and years and years ago in New York. It's called Nintendo New York. And then, we got our somewhat Nintendo store at the EB Games on Swanson Street and Maya at George Street in Sydney. The one at Maya closed down pretty quickly. The one at EB Games here closed down a few months ago because the EB Games itself is actually moving off Swanson Street. But yeah, so we've had that sort of store, but it was never selling anything other than games and the occasional crappy plush merchandise that EB normally sells, because it was an EB store, it wasn't a Nintendo store. When Nintendo started up their local rewards program again, the store.nintendo.com.au, people were like, cool, we'll start seeing some cool stuff. Most of it's just been 500 platinum coins for a Splatoon scrunchie or a pen, or like I have a Pokemon Snap themed plastic pocket. So just stuff like that is what they've been focusing on. But then out of nowhere yesterday, they announced that they are bringing some Animal Crossing themed canisters and randomly some pens from the Tokyo store out of Japan. So this isn't Nintendo merchandise. This is Nintendo store merchandise. Obviously, they're still both Nintendo, but one is the Nintendo store is an actual physical store that sells exclusive items that are branded in Nintendo Tokyo. So if you look at the actual images here, the red square indicates it is a Nintendo Tokyo item. They have also confirmed that later in the year we'll see the Majora's Mask pin, which is another Nintendo store exclusive in Tokyo, as well as some plate series and chopsticks, like home good stuff. But yeah, so the canister, the items are $8.50 for the pens. The canisters start at $18, go up to $28 for the big one. They are very, very cute. They do say Dobutsu no Mori, which is Animal Crossing's name in Japan. But then, some of them have Animal Crossing instead of it. Some of them have Animal Crossing at the bottom. So chops and changes depending on the design of the container. It's just very, very cute stuff. If you're, looking for some new canisters or, new things for your bench in the kitchen, or maybe you want to, put them in the bathroom or what have you, they are there. They are a plastic. They're not, a ceramic or anything like that. The lids are not dishwasher safe. All the details are on the store page for on the Nintendo website. Right, moving on to a new game announcement. We got word last week that this was being announced soon, and soon turned out to be this week, and that is the game Wild Hearts, which is a partnership between Koei Tecmo and EA through their EA Originals program. So Wild Hearts is a hunting game. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, cool, it's a hunting game, it's going to be Monster Hunter, but Koei Tecmo version of it. And I was kind of right. So the game is being developed by the Omega Force Group. Now, they're the same folks that do the Warriors series. So, Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, Persona Strikers, One Piece Warriors, right? That's that studio. This is their sort of next game. This has been in development for about 4 years, according to the developers. It is coming out on February 17th for both PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. Now, the big thing with this one is that the world you're in is sort of a fantasy version of Japan called Akuma, and there are these beasts, which we're seeing here on the screen, that are being corrupted by nature, and the corruption is making them bigger. But, the bigger they get, the stronger they get. So in order for you to take them down, you'll either have to, really level yourself up and get some good gear, or go at it with some friends, because the game will support 3-player cross-platform multiplayer. Now, you'll see here in the trailer that they are building up. You see here with the item, your character gets injured severely, and then they get, basically restored to life by using, ancient technology. That technology allows them to build giant instruments, in the middle of battle, kind of like Fortnite, which will help you turn the tide of battle. So, yeah, it's not just you running in against, an ice wolf here that we see, but, you can build up towers to try and capture them, to hold them down while you do damage, and a whole bunch of other stuff going for it. So, there is a gameplay trailer expected next week. The exact date, I think they said October 5 for the US, so it could be, a late October 5 here, probably early October 6. But we'll wait and see for that one. But yeah, it looks very, very cool. There is obviously a lot more that we, have to know about it before we actually get a proper sense of what to expect. But it's something that I think will excite many, many people. The fact that it's a Koei Tecmo game doesn't surprise me. It does remind me of their work. But the fact that it's an EA original, so it's not. Again, I think I said this for a few weeks ago. Koei Tecmo has money. They're not exactly strapped for cash, and they're not an indie developer. This isn't like 3 guys in a garage that's been working on this for 5 years, and now EA is helping them out, to cross the finish line. This is a well-known developer that has shipped millions of games. They've released like 10 Warriors games, their mainline series and spin-offs over the last like 5 years alone. So they're definitely, able to make games pretty quickly. But for some reason, they've done a partnership with EA. I honestly expect this to be because, when people see, Koei Tecmo, they think, cute anime girls like the Atelier Ryza series, or they think the Warriors series, right, the Muso games. And I think they're hoping that with it being an EA branded, published game through EA Originals, they're looking to get more, of a wider reach. We'll have to wait and see how that all shakes out because, as I said, we don't really know any other details yet, but we are expecting to see more in the next week through a gameplay video. Moving on into the world of Lego, the Razor Crest is coming back. So Lego have already released a Razor Crest model, which is the ship that Mando uses in The Mandalorian. If you've not seen The Mandalorian, I'm spoiling it for you because why not? But in the second season, or the second volume if you will, Mando's ship is destroyed from space. The Razor Crest is no more, it's absolutely decimated. In the book of Boba Fett, he does get a new ship, but it's not the same Razor Crest. Even though that's what he wants, he wants that style of ship. He can't get that. So they did release a Razor Crest model, a few weeks after the end of the first season, and it's a pretty cool one. I have it sitting in my room next to me here. It's very, very cool. It's got enough detail. This, however, is the Ultimate Collector Series Razor Crest. So there's a line of Star Wars Lego collectibles called the Ultimate Collector Series, or UCS. Now these ships are, they're extra large, they're extra detailed, and they have an extra hefty price tag to go with it. So there's a Millennium Falcon Star Wars ship. It's about $230, $300, somewhere around there. Then there's the Ultimate Collector Series, which is $1,300. There's an AT-AT that's about $200 normally, or there's a $800 UCS version, right? The Razor Crest model from memory was $180, $200, somewhere around there. This one is $900. So it does come with 6,187 pieces, and it does, if we show here, like this is a regular full-size adult, and that's the size of the ship. If I were to hold mine in front of me, it is nowhere near that big. It's hefty, but it's nowhere near that big. One of the big things with this one is, they go into much more detail than they do with the regular models. So in this particular screen, you can see these yellow lines, right? So they're bricks, they're Lego bricks. In the one that I have, they're stickers, right? So just as a way of showing, they are different. This is coming in October 17th, I think it was. 7th. Yeah, I was close. So October 7th, direct from Lego. Again, it is a big, hefty boy. It will take up space on your shelf if you do want to have one. The only one of these UCS series that I've ever wanted to get for myself was the Star Destroyer, because that thing was 1.2 meters long, and it was, some like 8,500 pieces or something. It was a massive machine. So yeah, that is something that I'm sort of, keen on seeing in person. I already own one of them. I already own the Millennium Falcon in Lego. I own an R2-D2 in Lego. I own an X-Wing in Lego. So I've been avoiding all the UCS line because I already own the basic versions, and I don't need two of them. I also couldn't afford to buy all the UCS because they are just so expensive. Moving off the world of Lego from TV shows, we're going to go into the world of TV shows with the reveal of the first trailer for The Last of Us. So The Last of Us obviously is a game series created by Naughty Dog for the PlayStation 3. It had the remaster on PlayStation 4, and then it had the remake recently, like 2 weeks ago on PlayStation 5, 3 weeks ago now, and it also has had a sequel. The Last of Us TV show is an adaptation of the original game, so it's the same basic plot line. Some of the key scenes are being included, but it's its own version of it. There is actually, there's a full teaser here. Just because of copyright and all that sort of stuff, I will not play it here because it's HBO and they do like to get involved in things quite quickly with legality stuff. We do know, Pedro Pascal, who's the Mandalorian, he's playing Joel. Bella Ramsey is playing Ellie. Both of them, were in Game of Thrones together. Gabriel Luna, who, if you've watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he was the actor who played Ghost Rider for half a season. He's in it as Tommy. And Nick Offerman, from Parks and Rec, he is playing Bill, who's a friend-ish of Joel's. So he's in there as well. We also know that Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker, who did Ellie and Joel respectively in the games, will be doing a cameo at some description in the show. We don't know what. We don't know if it's going to be one of those, they're going to interact with their, real world counterparts. It's just too unknown. The show is coming out in 2023. There is no actual release date. There's not even a window for it. Given that they dropped the trailer on what they now call The Last of Us Day, a couple of years ago they changed the name because they used to call it the Pandemic Day. and they changed it in 2020 because of the actual pandemic, of the COVID pandemic, not the Last of Us pandemic. So it could be that they'll drop it then. They could also do it, if it's 8 episodes, they could drop it 2 months before then, so the final episode does release on Last of Us Day. That would be what I would guess they would do. I don't think they'd sit on this for a whole year. That seems a little unlikely even for PlayStation to do, especially with HBO. HBO like to get their content out as soon as they can. There is another Last of Us associated game that's in development. We know that. So the game could tie in with this. This could help promote the game. Who knows? But yeah, so if you're looking for this, 2023 for it. Beyond that, we really don't know. Right. Moving into the world of tech, we have 2 news stories from Intel to share. One is very, 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 very big. The other, not so big, but it's still good to have. The first big news story is that the Intel 13th generation CPUs, codenamed Raptor Lake, have been announced and are coming out very soon. So the Intel CPU generations have been pretty consistent. Every sort of 12 to 18 months they've been putting out a new one. I have in mine a 12th gen CPU, which I got last year. That was March, I think it was, that it came out. So it's been pretty consistently, with their release cadence. The thing with this one is that it is much more than just an upgrade in the basic components. The 13th generation is designed for multitasking. So there is a video here where this marketing guide does break it down. But basically, so the i9 is what he's talking about here. They have what they call E-cores. I don't think I actually have, so the video just explains what they are. But E-cores are what they call efficient cores. And in this little graph here, you can see it. What efficient cores do is, if you're doing video work, he's doing some animation work in that still there, whatever you're doing, you can see the cores will all be running at full spec. When you're no longer doing that, or you want to do something else, the CPU itself will prioritize. It'll take off like the rendering work that you were doing and put them on the E-cores and retain the regular cores, if you will, for whatever you're doing. And then if you start doing something else that's, doing it, they'll split the load again. So instead of the whole CPU being dedicated to one task and one task only, it will now start bouncing between them. Bouncing between them is not right. It'll now start allocating resources accordingly. So if you're trying to play a game, and in the video you do see him do that, rendering out a 3D scene in Unreal Engine, rendering out a model in Blender, and playing a video game, and everything runs smooth in the game because of the way that these cores are built up. We know that there are 3 models coming. There's going to be more. There always is more, but there's a Core i5, an i7, and an i9. The i9 is the big one that has 24 cores, which means it has the most multitasking capabilities, and it can be boosted up to 5.8 gigahertz. So it's an actual, really fast thing. There's some statements from, Beanox, who are doing the PC port for Modern Warfare, and Creative Assembly, the Total War Warhammer series, and they're saying how great these things are. They did put out some, private specs that I got to see for it. They reckon between the Core i9 12th gen CPU and the Core i9 13th gen CPU, there's a 27% speed improvement in processing when you're doing anything in Adobe Photoshop, and a 34% boost when doing work in Blender. So, you may say, 27% is not much. But it's like, okay, if something took you 3 hours to work on, like to render out something, if you could save 30% of that time, right, you get your computer, you get your computer back 30% sooner, right? So, if you're saying 3 hours, that's like, 45 minutes, if roughly 45 minutes, right? So you're essentially getting like an hour back, right? That is a big saving of time. So this isn't obviously, they will work wonderfully for games. Most gamers will not play multiple games at once, and if you're a dedicated gamer, you are very unlikely to be worried about rendering out videos in the background while you're gaming. I have put the story in the chat, so you can check out the video where they do explain everything in more detail. These are expected to release in early 2023, which is not unexpected. We don't have local pricing for them yet because they haven't decided on it. Given that the 12th gen CPUs launched, I think the i5s launched at $700-ish. I wouldn't expect these to launch any cheaper than that. If anything, they'll probably be more expensive, but that's the way these things are. If you take, the 27% improvement in performance, so to speak, from this, the Intel Core 13 series, and you add that with the NVIDIA 40 series, which was revealed last week, which I will go into more detail next week on. If you, bring all those together, the next sort of real generation of computing is going to be astronomically fast. I could go into much more detail on NVIDIA now. They were kind enough to give me a complete tech breakdown the other day, but it's not for here because it is a real techie breakdown, but it is very, very cool nonetheless. The second piece of hardware news that we're talking about is the Intel Arc series of graphics cards, specifically their big behemoth card, the A770. It has a release date and a price, and it is much more affordable than anything NVIDIA is offering right now. So this is the card. It is down here. There we go. That's the card there. It is coming out on October 12th in the US. Intel Australia have not confirmed its availability here on that date, but they've said it will be coming out soon after. We'll just have to wait and see. The thing that makes this impressive is that the price for it in the US is $329, which if you convert that straight here to Australian dollars, it's $570. So maybe add an extra 100 and they rounded up $700. The cheapest NVIDIA card that you can get that's, same what level of performance is around $900. You're saving about $200. Obviously, this does not have all the same bells and whistles NVIDIA do. Same way AMD stuff doesn't have the same bells and whistles that this does, and vice versa. It does support NVIDIA's DLSS 2 tech. They have their own version of it. They call it XESS because they had to be different. But yeah, it is just a fully packed card. It'll offer the same great, the same sort of visual stuff. They do have this little trailer here. I don't know why it's lagging. It's a bit being weird. So they're saying with Tomb Raider here with XESS. See, DLSS makes more sense than this. It's technically supposed to be said as XS. But it just doesn't make sense to me that way. They're seeing like double the performance with this enabled based on without it. It's not exactly the same as NVIDIA's DLSS because that stuff depends on the generation. But it does ray tracing, it does all the bells and whistles that you expect from a modern video card, but just at like a third of the price. So, if it launches here at the same price, in the same price spectrum that it should, we should see a really good option for people who want to do some gaming, but may not have the budget to buy a $2,000 video card. The last thing we're going to talk about before we get into the games, for the month ahead, is that we have the first details about E3 2023, and there are some big changes in store. So the first thing is E3 is happening the same week that I expected it to. So the week in question is the Monday, the 13th of June. So if I bring up my calendar here, so the 13th of June, sorry, the 12th of June is the Monday. That'll be, well, it was the Queen's birthday weekend. I don't know if we'll have that anymore. So Tuesday, June 13 is when the show starts. That's the same Tuesday it's been starting at for years now. It's highly unlikely they'll ever change away from that. Where things that are changing though is that the show will be open to the public for 2 days this year, but it's different. The show is now actually 4 days long. So much like Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show do, they have dedicated media and business days, and then they have public days. So what E3 is doing is on the Tuesday the 13th and Wednesday the 14th, they will be business and media only. So that'll be like when I can go in and just have, shorter wait times to go play things, do appointments, all that sort of stuff. On the Thursday, which was, previously the last day of the show, that will be a mix. That'll be public and media. So, there'll be meeting rooms and all that for me to do stuff, but then the public can get in and play games and all that sort of stuff. And then Friday, which is the first day, it's the new day of the show. This is the first time we've had 4 days. That will be exclusively for public. So, my media access will not get me in on that day. If I want to go in, I'd likely have to buy a ticket. We do know that in terms of their panels and things like that, those will be done on the consumer focus days, so the Thursday and the Friday. So much like PAX has with their panels, presentations, they'll have those on the last 2 days of the show. All the not the press stuff, all the showcases, Xbox showcase, Nintendo Direct, State of Play from PlayStation, stuff like that will happen before the show starts as usual. So on the the Sunday, the 11th, and all that. And then E3, the show will happen on its normal days. What they're aiming to do is that E3 isn't going to be exclusively locked to the convention center. They want to encompass basically the whole of downtown LA is into the E3 umbrella. So, Devolver Digital, they do things on their own beat. They always have. For years, they would rent the car park across the street from the convention center. That car park got turned into a condominium building. They moved it to the car park next door. So they were doing that because it gets people out of the convention center, because that place can become quite overwhelming pretty quickly. But it also means they don't have to pay the booth rental fees that the ESA charge to host a booth at E3. I've had things with other companies where they've had they've rented out like little rooms above bars. They've had hotel rooms where they've had the beds have been removed and they've installed TVs to do things there. And there's things that they do off site. So what they're looking to do as well is, traditionally the E3 show floor has been the South Hall, the West Hall, and the Concourse. And the Concourse is the thing that connects them, right? The Concourse itself only has the first third is it's a mini sort of hall, and they just fill it with small meeting rooms. That's always just been very quiet, very casual. It's really a good place to sit down and take 5 minutes, even if you don't have a meeting. What they're looking to do is that Concourse Hall will become an indie showcase space. So indie developers will be able to, say, hey, I'm making this game. I think it's going to be great. I want to show it at E3. That's where they'll be. The South Hall, the South Hall is I can't remember which one's the South Hall now. The bigger one of the halls will be the traditional show floor, with all the big bombastic booths. The other one will be, more meeting spaces than anything else, designed for media and businesses, so they can present things and not have to try and talk over loud things. There's also there's a fourth hall that doesn't get used all that often, called Kentia Hall. It is under the South Hall, and they're, looking to see if they can make use of that as well. So there's no details on ticket prices, when they'll go on sale, who can access it and all that sort of stuff. But Maxi-Geek will be there on for the days that we're allowed to go, covering what we can cover. It is a lot of effort to cover off that show. So once we have some more details, we'll start talking about it. But don't expect anything more on this until the new year. They just wanted to get the news out there prior to it leaking like it always traditionally does. Right, moving on to the games of the month. So as always, we have our PlayStation Plus lineup and our October, our Games with Gold lineup. Games with Gold is different. I'll get to that in a moment. So we'll start with PlayStation Plus. The games this month are a little weird. They're quite different. So Super Hot is in there, Injustice 2 is there, and Hot Wheels Unleashed is there as the other game. Hot Wheels Unleashed is the PlayStation 5 game. So if you have a PlayStation 5, there's a PlayStation 5 version of Hot Wheels Unleashed you can get and take full advantage of. It is also available on PlayStation 4, so if you don't have the new console, you can get all 3 games and they'll run fine on your PS4. These games will be available starting October 3rd, which is October 4th, sorry, this coming Tuesday, which means you have until Monday, October 3rd, to redeem the September titles, Need for Speed, Heat, Toem, and something. I did actually link it because I'm always forgetting what they are. That's right, some random RPG thing. Grand Blue Fantasy, there you go. Yeah, so Super Hot is interesting. You know, the nothing in the game happens until you move. So, you know, if you want to pause the game, you just don't move your character and everything comes to a halt. Injustice 2, it's a fighting game with the DC characters and, you know, the Terminator, the Predator, and a whole bunch of random things. And then, you know, Hot Wheels Unleashed, it's a racing game. It is a decent sort of lineup. It is pretty varied. You know, I'm not a fighting game fan myself. I play them, you know, I'm a casual fighting game fan at most. But, you know, the Injustice series is good fun. Super Hot is fantastic. Hot Wheels Unleashed, it's, you know, any sort of good racing game is always welcome. The October Games with Gold lineup, however, this is where things are getting stupid. And that is the best way to describe it because there's 2 games for the month. So September is the last month that they were including Xbox Original and Xbox 360 titles as part of the program, which meant, you know, for the past, you know, 3 years, you're getting 4 games a month as part of your membership. When they said that they were, you know, no longer adding older titles to the service, many people, myself included, hoped that they would do what PlayStation have done and just add a 3rd game to the lineup to sort of bolster it, to say, hey, you know, we understand, you know, we're not adding any older titles, but here's an additional newer game that you may enjoy. That is not the case. They've just axed the 2 and not added anything else. Now, this could just be a once-off thing. They may add more to it going forward. They may not. We don't know because, you know, they've not said anything. They just announced the 2 games and moved on. The 2 games in question are Windbound, which is a procedurally generated roguelike sailing game that was made here in Australia. I really enjoyed it. It's very challenging though because, you know, if you get 3 worlds in and you die, if you have you know, the realistic setting turned on, you have to start all the way back at the start. And it's, you know, it's very much a survival game where you have to sail from island to island to get supplies. But, you know, you can't make it from island to island until you have enough supplies to build better boats and, you know, all that sort of stuff. Just a very, very fun game. The other one is Bomber Crew, the Deluxe Edition. It is just, you know, a next step up for the original Bomber Crew release. It's fun. It's a great sort of, you know, not party game, but it's a fun, lighthearted fun game. But there is a serious level of, you know, skill involved and, you know, patience, I suppose, is another way to put that. So, you know, that's there. But yeah, the fact that, you know, they're only including 2 games this month, as I said, it's just stupid. You know, they said, you know, if you cancel your subscription, you still get to keep every Xbox Original and Xbox 360 game that was a part of the program. You know, they're yours to keep, you know, in perpetuity now, regardless of your subscription status, which is great. But if you're still paying for it, or you've just joined because, you know, you got told you get 4 free games a month, and now you're only getting 2 games a month, it's just something they need to work out. The fact that they haven't been clear on it too doesn't help. You know, and not disparaging these 2 games. You know, I already have Windbound on my Xbox. from a review. So, you know, I'm only now getting one game this month, which is not a great sort of thing. They're still doing that weird split. Windbound is available tomorrow. Bomber Crew is not going to be available until the 16th of the month. I don't know why they're insisting on doing that. This would have been a great opportunity for them to refresh it all, you know, and just do, you know, first of the month, here are the games. But they've decided they're not doing that for whatever reason. Because, you know, who knows? It's Xbox and they're doing weird things again. But yeah. With those done, we are now going to talk about the games coming out in the month of October. As always, this is a massive list and we'll go through it. This is the list as it stands today. You know, so some of these games were added today because they were announced today. Some games have had dates changed since I started putting this list together. They're in there. So if a game gets delayed tomorrow, you know, it will be remaining on this list. But these are all the ones coming out. It is going to be a pretty big month. So the first game that's on the rank is Let's Sing ABBA, which is just literally a karaoke game featuring ABBA. This is not the first time we've had it. There was a SingStar ABBA game many, many years ago. Yes, Steve, Xbox doing weird things. Don't get me wrong, Xbox are doing very, very well across the board with most things, but for some reason they're just holding on to things that they shouldn't do. Also on the 4th, we'll see the release of Dakar Desert Rally, which is the next or the latest, you know, Dakar rally game. This is the first one in a number of years. It is an open world rally game as well, so it's not going to be, you know, this is the starting point, this is the course you've got to follow, you know, this is the end point. It'll be this is the start point, this is the end point. Good luck, you know. October 6th, we'll see the release of Nier Automata, the End of Yorha edition on Switch. We are having somebody play it at the moment for review. We should have that done by the time the, you know, game comes out. Very early impressions are very, very good. It is, you know, running solid 30 frames a second, looks amazing, and you know, the fact that it's on Switch is, you know, a testament to the folks at Platinum Games. The day after that, on the 7th, we'll see the release of No Man's Sky on Switch. This is all procedurally generated, so the game will just keep growing the more and more you play it. It is also getting its retail release on PlayStation 5 that day. The game is out now on PlayStation 5, but if you want it on disc on PlayStation 5, it's coming out on the 7th as well. October 7th, we'll also see the release of The Legends of Hero Trails from Zero. This game is out in other regions. NIS America do sort of a multi-week release cadence. It'll release, you know, one day in the US, then a couple of weeks later it'll hit Europe, a couple of weeks after that it'll hit Australia. That's just the way they do it. October 11th, we'll see the release of Astrogos Curse of the Stars for all platforms but Switch. It is very much a... kind of reminds me of, you know, Immortals Phoenix Rising. It's, you know, it's a Greek setting. It's not... It's kind of like a Dark Souls Greek thing. That's what I get from it. There is obviously more about the game, but, you know, check it out for yourself if it does interest you. I think it looks very, very cool, but I'm a bit of a sucker for Greek anything. So, you know, that's one of them. The 13th, we'll see the release of Asterisk and Obelix XXL The Ram from Hibernia. It's just another Asterix and Obelix game that is coming to Switch, PC, PlayStation, and Xbox Series platforms. No Xbox One for some reason. The 13th of October, we'll see the release of The Last Aura Crew for PC, Xbox Series, and PlayStation 5. This is an interesting game in that you can play it completely on your own or with a friend. And if you play it with a friend, the puzzles will be different because, you know, some puzzles do not work as if you're playing solo, so the puzzles in the game will change depending on the number of players. The 13th will also see the release of WRC Generations, which the video that I've put in here actually has one of the rally drivers that, you know, is taking part in this year's series, playing the game, and he's talking it up about how he likes it. The 14th will see the release of Dragon Ball The Breakers for Switch, PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. It will work on next-gen consoles. It's just not optimized for them. It's not going to take full advantage. It is one of those, you know, 4v1 multiplayer games just set in the Dragon Ball universe. The survivors are just generic folks. They spent an hour during TGS talking about the fact that there's a farmer character. He has a shotgun. It's there. The big thing with those guys, though, is that they can find items to give them the powers of the heroes from Dragon Ball. So you might be the farmer, but then you might find, something that lets you become Piccolo for an hour, like for 10 minutes, right? The baddies in this one, the ones that hunt you down, that's Frieza, Cell, and Majin Buu. They're all announced. They're all part of the key art for it. They deep dived into Majin Buu during TGS, though. So that's coming out on the 14th. Also on the 14th, it's a big day. We'll see the release of NHL 23 for all platforms but Switch. It's just the yearly release of it. One of the big things, though, is that there will be custom leagues this year. So you won't have to stay in the leagues, the actual leagues from the NHL. You can create your own league and have teams from competing leagues actually playing off against each other as part of a regular season. PGA Tour 2K24 will also release on the 14th. That is coming to everything but Switch. It was announced overnight the course designer is going to be in the game day one, which we knew about. It was in this trailer from like 3 weeks ago. It will, however, be there's a big asterisk next to it. So the course designer was in 2K21, and it was in the golf club series that HB Studios, who are the developers of this one, were working on for years as well. There are some 300,000 courses available in 2K21 because of the course designer. None of those courses will work day one in 2K23. What has to be done is the person who created the course in 2K21 has to import it into 2K23, fix any potential issues. Maybe asset is no longer relevant, it's no longer in the game, or it's slightly different, which changes up the course or some way. Once they've revalidated everything, they have to then upload it again. I don't know about you, but I couldn't imagine somebody chomping at the bit to revalidate a dozen courses they made from 2 years ago. It's possible they may do it, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. The final game to come out on the 14th would have been Star Trek Prodigy Supernova, which is an Outright Games title. It's based on the animated show, which is set within the Star Trek universe. That was going to be the last one until last night. Kepler Interactive and Ebb Studios announced that Scorn, which was set to release on the 21st, is now releasing on the 14th. It's not a horror game. If I just skip ahead into the video here, it is not a horror game. It looks like it's a horror game. It has the atmosphere of a horror game, but it is actually a puzzle game. It's just, a very gross looking puzzle game. So this is now set to release on the 14th of October instead of the 21st. So it is coming into Xbox Game Pass on day one. So if you had, the game pre-installed, it will now unlock a week earlier. If you pre-ordered the game, it will release on, it'll come to stores, a week earlier. So just be aware of it. The date has changed, and it's the third game this year. It's actually moved forward in terms of its release date. So, just be aware of that one. Starting the following week, we'll see a Plague Tale Requiem release for PC, Xbox Series, and PS5. You would think that's it, but yeah, Scorn is not a horror game. It just looks like it's going to be a horror game because of the design of the world. But yeah, so Plague Tale Requiem is coming out on the 18th for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series platforms. It is launching into Game Pass on that same day. So if you have, Xbox Series platform or PC, you'll be able to get the game as part of your membership. It is also launching on Switch on that day via cloud streaming. A Plague Tale Innocence is already on Switch via cloud. Innocence is not available here. You can, if you have an eShop account for a different region, you can download the demo and try it out, but you can't buy it because you need to have, money on the account for the region that you got it from. Now, it is possible that it may come out here because Capcom have, they're going to release Resident Evil Village here in Australia via the cloud on Switch. You can download the demo now on the Australian eShop and give it a go. It does work. Apart from being added to a queue every time I wanted to try the demo, it does work. It streams very quickly. I didn't notice any real lag on it. Unfortunately, the demo is only like 3 minutes worth of gameplay, depending on how quickly you move through it. So it's not really a good indicator of, the longevity of the cloud streaming. But yeah, if you only have a Switch and it does launch here, that may be an option for you. The 18th will also see the release of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed for all platforms but Switch. This is another 4v1 multiplayer title. The big difference, obviously, is that it is themed to Ghostbusters, so you can be, on the team Ghostbusters, or you can become the ghost and cause chaos and mischief and hunt down the Ghostbusters. It does have Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd reprising their roles as Winston and Ray from the movies. Bill Murray is not known to be in the game, but it's Bill Murray. He does what he does randomly all the time. So the 18th will also see the release of Them's Fightin' Herds, which is a multiplayer brawler game featuring ponies and horses and cows and such. It's all very, very cutesy. This game did release on PC a while ago. This is the console release for this game. So it is already out now on PC, but it is coming to Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation on the 18th. So it reminds me visually a lot of Brawlhalla from Ubisoft. It's just that same very, very, very similar style. It's just going to be, for that. Moving on from there, on the 19th, we get the PC release of The Last Worker. It is coming to consoles as well, but this is the PC is getting it first. Consoles will get it next year. Also on the 19th, PC players will be able to enjoy Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection, which includes Uncharted 4 A Thief's End and Uncharted The Lost Legacy, which is the one that has Chloe Fraser, who's a fan favorite character, and Nadine Ross, who is an annoying character. I didn't like Nadine in Uncharted 4, and the fact they made her, one of the main characters in the spin-off was weird for me. October 20th, we'll see the release of Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope for Switch. A bunch of folks got to go hands-on with it a couple of weeks ago, so there's plenty of impressions about it out now. It is just an overly, expanded experience based on the first game, so if you enjoyed the first one, you'll like this one. If you're not a fan of this sort of, XCOM tactical combat, this may not be the game for you. The 20th will also see the full release of Second Extinction for PC, Xbox One, and Xbox Series platforms. It has been out in early access. This is just now the full, the 1.0 release. So that's something to look forward to. All platforms on the 20th will also get the release of Warhammer 40,000 Shooters, Blood and Teeth, which is sort of a side-scroller Contra, type of game, but just set in the Warhammer universe with that sort of very cartoon art style. The 21st will see Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3 Slime Speedway race onto all platforms. This one is also one of their key marketing points, is it has the voice acting from the shows. So when you see SpongeBob doing stuff, it'll sound like SpongeBob. When you see Aang from Avatar, or Korra from The Legend of Korra, or Arnold from Hey Arnold, they all sound like their characters because they learnt their lesson after their fighting game launched without any noise from the people in that game. The 21st will also see the release of Gotham Knights for PC, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series platforms. This was moved... Sorry, this is the fourth game. Scorn was the fourth game. So this game was going to release on the 25th. They brought it forward a few days for whatever reason. I don't know. They never said why. They just said they'll bring it forward a few days. So Xenoblade Chronicles 3 jumped forward a couple of months. Gotham Knights, a couple of days. Scorn was a week early, and there's another game that I'm now forgetting that also moved ahead its release date. So yeah, for 4 games so far this year have done that. The 21st will also see the release of New Tales from the Borderlands. That is coming to all platforms. There is a standard edition that is digital only. That'll get you just this game. There is a deluxe edition that is digital and retail. And a retail release that will get you this game and the first one. So if you already own Tales from the Borderlands, which is on all the platforms, you don't need to buy the deluxe edition. You just need to buy the regular standard edition, which is, on thing. I would imagine it's something more to do with just the date in question. I think the 21st, the 21st is a Friday, something they just wanted to get the game out ahead of the weekend rather than launching it at the start of the next week, and then having it, not really gain traction because people have to go back to work and school and all that. But yeah, so New Tales from the Borderlands, if you already own the first game, just get the standard edition, which is digital only. If you don't own the first game and you want it, you can buy that now, or you can wait and pick up the deluxe edition either in store or digitally to get both. The 21st will also see the release of Persona 5 Royal for the first time off PlayStation. So Persona 4 was PlayStation 4 only. Persona 5 Royal was PlayStation 4 only. This is now launching on PlayStation 5, Switch, PC, and Xbox platforms. It is also launching into Xbox Game Pass or Game Pass on PC and Xbox the same day. So if you have an Xbox or PC and you've got the Game Pass membership, so far this month you get Persona 5 Royal, Scorn, and there was another one at the top that I've forgotten. So you get sort of 3 really good games day one inside of Game Pass. The 25th will see the release of Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord for consoles and PC. The game's been out, the game's out on PC now, but this is just the full release on PC and the console launch for it. The 27th will see the release of Signalis on Switch, PC, and Xbox One and PlayStation 4. It is a very, very cool looking PS1-esque era, visual title. I couldn't begin to tell you what it's about though, because I just don't understand what they're trying to do with this game. I get like horror vibes from it, but it's also like an investigation game. So yeah, I'm really not sure. It kind of looks a little bit like a cross between, say, Resident Evil and Metal Gear Solid. But yeah, so this is coming out on the 27th. It does look interesting, but I'll have to wait and see for that one. The 27th will also see the release of Star Ocean: The Divine Force, which is it's Star Ocean 6. It's the next main entry in the series. It's possible Steve signals. It does look interesting. It's one of those ones where the more you sort of see the trailer with audio, the more it sort of makes sense, but they really don't detail anything beyond that, so who knows. But yeah, you can see what I'm seeing. Like, it kind of looks like it's got like the Metal Gear Solid sort of world vibe, but it's got like the atmosphere of like a Resident Evil, and it's got the sort of the early PS1 visuals as well. So yeah, Star Ocean, as I said, back to that one. There's a demo for that game out now with progress carrying across to the full release. So if you do have an interest in this one, you can download the demo. But I think it's about 2 hours worth of content, and then all that progress will carry across to the full release. As we mentioned earlier, Sackboy is out on the 27th for PC, so that's there. The 28th will see the release of Bayonetta 3 on Switch after many years of waiting. It will also see the full release of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on all platforms but Switch. However, if you pre-order the game, you get the campaign a week early on the 21st. You just don't get access to the multiplayer until the 28th. If you don't pre-order it or you don't care, everything is available on the 28th. Also on the 28th, we will see the release, apparently, of Resident Evil Reverse, which is their third multiplayer-focused title. It is coming as part of the Resident Evil Gold release on the day. So Resident Evil Village Gold Edition is releasing on that day. It will come to Switch. That's when the game's launching on Switch via the cloud. All the other platforms will get an update that'll add a bunch of features. The Mercenaries mode is getting an overhaul. There'll be a third-person mode if you want to play the game in third person. The Mercenaries mode will add you the ability to play as Lady Dimitrescu and a few other of the boss characters. There was something else in there, I can't think of what it is. But it also preps the DLC for later in the year, the Rose Winter expansion. But yeah, so this is the big sort of thing on the 28th. Obviously, Gold Edition is there, but if you have Resident Evil Village already, you'll get the Reverse as an included update, but it's packed in with the Gold Edition as well. And then that's it. That's the month. So it is a busy month. And as always, we pick 4 games to go at the top of the list in the visual. And if you just took it on those 4 games alone, right? The 20th, the 21st, the 28th, and the 28th, right? So the back half of the month is loaded with those 4 alone, but there's plenty at the start of the month that's going to, keep people playing all the way forward. And that's not even all the games. Like No More Heroes is getting its PlayStation and Xbox release this month. Kamiwaza Way the Thief is hitting more platforms. That launched on PC and Switch a while ago. Saint Kotar, it's a horror game from Sodesco that's launching this month. Trifox is a like a 3D platformer that's launching this month. That got dated the other day. Figment 2 is launching this month for Switch and PC. I'll point this out for Trifox. They put it out there. They said the developers grew up playing Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm old now, because you know I didn't grow up playing those. They, you know, I was already grown up when they came out. So, yeah, that's there as well. So yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff still coming out that again it didn't include. We sort of just pick out the really big ones, the games that are making an impact for whatever reason. Sometimes it's because it's a big tentpole title, like the 4 on the screen. Sometimes it's like Signalis or them's Fighting Herds, where it's just so interesting. You know, you look at the trailer, you look at the visuals, and you're like, I want to know more about this. So yeah, so there's plenty to you know, experience this month. I figured somebody would have grown up playing those games, but it's not me. I was already grown up when they came out. You know, if we look ahead quickly to November, you know, we've got a new Pokemon game, new God of War, Tactics Ogre, sorry, Harvestella, Sonic is in there, Evil West is there, so there's still a lot to come in November, and obviously December. Normally, December is pretty quiet, but you know, there's a new trailer that got released today for the Callisto Protocol, which is the horror game from Striking Distance Studios, which is made up by a lot of people that from Sledgehammer Games, who did Call of Duty for a number of years, and that studio was spun up by former Visceral Games, who made Dead Space. So this is the spiritual successor to Dead Space, not to be confused with the Dead Space remake coming next year from EA. But you know, so that's coming out on December 2nd, the same day as the Marvel Midnight Suns games coming out. You know, the Yu-Gi-Oh game coming out, Hello Neighbor 2, and a whole bunch of other things as well. So yeah, there's just plenty to look forward to for the rest of this year, and even the first month or the first sort of 6 weeks of 2023 are stacked as well. That does bring us to the end of another episode of the show. We do record these normally every Friday at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Now, I say normally because next week we will not be doing it because we'll be at PAX Australia. We'll be recording this on Sunday night next week. So Sunday the 9th, I want to say it's the 9th of October, and it is. We'll be recording it. So we will be recording it at 7 p.m. next Sunday night because we'll have a lot of PAX stuff to talk about. Normally, I would say Tuesday we'll be back for Games Bond, but we won't be because we actually finished off that series back then. We will, however, be kicking off our new series on Tuesday. Ta-da! On Tuesday, we will start playing through the Splinter Cell series from Ubisoft. So we'll be playing Splinter Cell, the first game, on the original Xbox, and then once we're done with that, we'll move on to Pandora Tomorrow, Chaos Theory, Double Agent, Conviction, and then Blacklist. And Blacklist was the one they sort of rebooted. They tried to reboot the series for whatever reason. It didn't really need to be rebooted, but they insisted on doing it. That was the last one we've had. They're currently remaking the original over at Ubisoft Toronto. That's still a ways away. But yeah, so there are 6 games in the series. It should take us a good couple of months to get through them all. We will also be changing the time. So instead of being 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, we're going to be starting the series at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday and going for 2 hours as normal. So we're going to be starting that series an hour later. You know, the details in the Twitch panel will be updated. And the Maxi-Geek Show next Friday will not take place. It'll take place on Sunday. Look for all information on socials for those because we will put them out there so everyone is aware of it. But that does us for this week. If you did enjoy what you saw, give us a follow on Twitch. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, do give us a thumbs up down there as well. Subscribe if you want. I'm not worried about that. Otherwise, we'll catch you when we're online next time. And until then, happy gaming.